Hey, Valkyrie. Congrats on the first. Play it, Conan. That's Conan on the sax. No, I'm just kidding. Dude, moderation is weird. Like, especially on YouTube. Like, I don't know if you're a mod there too, but like, you should see the stuff that gets moderated sometimes. Sometimes it's just people speaking in a slightly angry way. Alright, this next song is Steve Lacy's In Funami. Can you come back to me? 'Cause I was blind to see that you were right in front of me. You were right in front of me, girl. I was blind to see you were right in front of me. You were right in front of me. Oh, insensitive, I must have seemed when she told me that she loved me. How unmoved and cold I must have seemed when she told me so sincerely. Why, she must have asked, did I just turn and stare in icy silence? What was I to say? What can you say when a love affair is over? Now she's gone away, and I'm alone with the memory of her last look. Vague and drawn and sad, I see it still. All her heartbreak in that last look. Why, she must have asked, did I just stare in icy silence? What was I to do? What can one do when a love affair is over? Come on, everybody. Should've known, little girl, that you do me wrong. Should've known by the way you were showing off. Should've known, little girl, that you do me wrong. Should've known by the way you were showing off. Bad habits, yeah, bad habits. Ooh, bad habits, yeah, bad habits. Ah, bad habits, yeah, bad habits. Ooh, bad habits, yeah, bad habits. Hello and welcome everybody to the 6 Pixels Under podcast. I feel like every podcast I get taller, or my microphone is like, or camera is like lowering. But hello everybody. I'm actually feeling much better, which is great news. You can probably hear that in my voice. Also, I went through like a big span of doing a bunch of editorial videos, which I'll talk about in a second. I have another one coming soon, and then I have the death of a game on the Cycle Frontiers, which I want to talk slightly about just because it's been very interesting. Like, every time I do a death of a game, there's always like 2 parallel stories, or maybe 3, depending on kind of, if you want to say the third is the truth, like people say like that, is that I ask for feedback from developers, players, and whoever else, basically. And so what I often find is that sometimes these can be in alignment, right? Sometimes these aren't in alignment. Sometimes players that are the casual player base will be very different than the hardcore player base. And this is something that just depends on the game, depends on the kind of game, right? But it's always interesting because when I'm covering a game, there's always particular games that will have very interesting and unique stories. And one thing I found about the cycle is that I got a lot of developers messaging me about it, but a couple of them kind of gave me, not different stories, but I'll say like different contextual stories, which was interesting. And then of course the player base has been very helpful, telling me kind of, you know, what their biggest issues were with the game. And that's kind of like the purpose in me always doing those communal posts is it's very much to gather data. Like, I know it would be cool to think of me as like the intersect or the matrix, but in reality, I'm just a person researching, right? Just one person. So that means that like when I first started my channel, I relied heavily on games that I had mastered myself, right? But over time, I realized that that just wasn't going to cut it, right? If I wanted to cover an entire genre and make a series, right, I needed to also talk to people who were better educated than me, developers potentially, or even players who had just played a lot more or just much better than I was. And that immediately gave me success, because it was like suddenly I was able to cover things that I didn't necessarily feel confident about because I hadn't put like 1,000 hours in the game or 500 hours in the game or whatever else. And so that was a key thing for me with the series, is to make sure I did open it up to feedback and messages from people. Yeah, so Club Penguin will definitely be covered. I can actually tell you that it's probably coming up soon, just because I've been kind of like on a social MMO craze, like wanting to cover more of the ones that failed. Because the thing about Club Penguin is that saying failed and Club Penguin in the same sentence is not really fair, because it's more like business and corporate negligence, right? Like, the game was doing fine. Then it got bought and sold. Then they shut it down for another game that didn't do as well. So it's kind of like, you see what I'm saying? Like, if you let somebody that doesn't know the history tell you the story, they'll just say like, oh, see, social MMOs failed. It's like, well, no, actually, like, Club Penguin was massively successful. What's up, Martin? Or Martine, I'm not sure. What's up, Defco, by the way? Bon Barman, Desart. Velociraptor Rex is a good one. Valkyrain, Drowercorn, and whoever else. Feel free to get any questions in or any comments. I want to talk about the New World expansion first before I go into the editorial stuff, because that's like deeper stuff. Let me pull up the article for the New World expansion. New World expansion. Rise of the Angry Earth is the name. Okay. I'm gonna read it from pcgames.in or pcgamesin.com. New World's first expansion is a cataclysmic overhaul 2 years on. The Rise of the Angry Earth introduces mounts along with an increased level cap and new progression. It introduces the much requested ability to summon mounts, which is actually fairly problematic, but not problematic in a weird sense. I'll get into that in a second. I'll explain like why mounts are not really that problematic, but also why they still can offer some potential issues if your game design is not suited for it. They also talked about a new weapon type, the heart or a heart rune ability, new areas, and of course some new stories. So the new expansion takes you to the southeastern tip of Eternum. This is a place where newcomers will be welcomed, which tells me that the new gaming experience that they originally designed just wasn't good enough for them. So they wanted to find a way to introduce the new content to the new players as well, which is actually not necessarily a bad idea. Trials of Atlantis, many other famous expansions did this. You will be able to tame your mount. Horses, direwolves, lions, each having diable equipment. The level cap will be increased to 65, with gear score now being capped at 700. Trade skills will be increased to 250. There's also one level 62 expedition added. I mean, that's what I love about streaming, man, is you just get live reactions, and I don't script this shit. But I hadn't even looked at this yet, but expedition? This is what everyone's telling me that's gonna save the game? Okay. For New World fans, let me tell you how my brain works so you don't think I'm just being a hater. So when I take in new expansions and new updates, I come from the ilk that played games back in the early 2000s. That doesn't make me better than anybody. It actually just makes me more aware and used to games that actually had kick-ass and amazing expansions that were worth the money. So I'm just more exposed to it. To use that exposure to then compare to something like this is, I would say, not horrible on the content. This is what I would say like light for an expansion, even back then. But it's not bad in the new context of like the modern age of MMO or online RPG. That being said, New World has been building this up for like a year, basically. So like the whole thing is that this was supposed to be the culmination of like 8 months of work, and this was really going to save the game, and I was having content creators tell me this was going to save the game and so on and so forth. But the thing is that this just demonstrates even more the problems with New World as a design, and why I don't think the people that were in charge of it knew what they were doing. And that's just because they didn't know how to design or build online world. And I'll tell you very simply, for people that understand how to build online worlds, whether you're a developer or not, you will understand what I'm talking about. So when New World first came out, they wanted to build this kind of like dangerous, like New World frontier where it's like you have to like build settlements, but also defend them because there's people that you have to fight against, not just the monsters or NPCs, but other players. And so the thing is that early on, that was the experience. As I've mentioned many times, I was an alpha tester. I flew out to their studio, got to test the game there too. The game was very different back then. It was very much this kind of game. It was trying to be a frontier game. It had building properties. You could build basically anywhere. You could advance settlements. It had a lot of unique aspects that, you know, were no longer in the game later on. Now, for people wondering, well, why did they remove those aspects? Well, there's a couple reasons why the game changed drastically. People think just the PvP changed in New World. It was not just the PvP. To be clear, the PvP changed because when I flew out, the story is I flew out and exploited the hell out of the criminal system to the point to where I was killing all the other content creators, and told the developers in front of all of them that, hey, I exploited the system. It doesn't work. This criminal system's from 1998, and like there's a lot more iterations that have come out since then. We need to do much better, otherwise the criminal system is going to just destroy the game because there's not enough consequence. I have developers that were there that can vouch for me, that don't even work there anymore now too, if that ever needed to be a thing. But there's also developers that work there. They could literally just tell the truth, and that I did tell them this. I told them that the criminal system is not going to work. I know PvP systems. This system felt like 1998. And what they kept saying and iterating is that, no, this is an old version, this is an old build, which I countered with, well, then why can't we test the newer build? They're like, oh, it's not ready. It's like, okay, well, fair enough. But then, like, hopefully you guys are actually going to take all of this feedback to heart. They didn't really seem to do that. Another example of that is that they then massively changed the criminal system suddenly. Oh my God, the criminal system didn't work? Wow, players are reporting about it. What should we do? And it was like a big surprise, right, for everybody. Suddenly they had to basically completely revamp the game. Now, did they have to? No. Criminal systems is just mimicking our real world, right? Like, meaning that if we wanted to find solutions for such, the solutions exist in our real world. The amount of times I have to say this over and over again before people understand it is bizarre. That online games that are trying to mimic most of these games, right? New World, it's called New World, trying to mimic worlds. That we have our real world to use as a barometer or a measuring stick, right? So we can think of these solutions and problems in that context. So in a criminal system, just removing the criminal system outright completely, utterly changed the context of what the game was. Now, there will be people defending, but the game's better and okay, well, let's relax for a second. There was no PvE in the game before. Like, when I tested the game, especially, there was a couple mobs floating around, no points of interest and no significant PvE, raids, dungeons, or anything. Literally at all in the game. Okay? Now, fast forward, the game came out. They added a couple of these like open dungeons, I think about 3 or 4 of them. And I think there's one expedition at the end game that they added on later on in an update. To illustrate for people the differences here. When WoW originally came out as literally vanilla WoW, it came out with what? Raids, right? It came out with group dungeons. It came out with it immediate, right? So if you're trying to satisfy this world PvE zone experience, you have to satisfy it immediately. There is no waiting for the payoff to come and then you're gonna save the game. That doesn't work that way because it's all perishable content, meaning that the player base is gonna eat through all of it and have nothing left. And that's exactly what happened with New World, and I told everybody was going to happen. Because this is a design issue. This is not me predicting the future. It's because they tried to switch their design from an open world sandbox game where the stories and emergent gameplay is what drives the experience and made it more theme park. There's nothing wrong with theme park games as much as people try to weirdly assign that hate onto me, despite not knowing me or my interest in games at all and how much I played theme park games to an absurd amount. Probably more than the people saying that I hate them, but the point is that this is a design issue. Once you go theme park and you lose all the world aspects of being a sandbox, you don't have to, but that's what they did. They shifted towards that element. Suddenly, they had to add this faction system that wasn't fully developed, quest system that was essentially worse than quest systems from the late 90s and early 2000s. Essentially, every thing about New World besides the graphics, visual, and sound design is worse in slot, meaning there's no MMO or online RPG that it's better than, historically, in those respects. It doesn't have more dungeons, doesn't have more raids, doesn't have more story, doesn't have better story, doesn't have more customization, doesn't have a better economy. In fact, the economy was broken almost immediately at launch to an irreparable way. So you kind of see what I'm saying is the problem is that you have to evaluate everything in totality. So when you're building a world, if the world only consists of theme parks, areas in which you travel to in order to have fun, no matter how long or repeatable those experiences are, eventually that will subside. You'll get bored of those experiences, no matter if you played on the hard difficulty and not, which most people don't. So you'll have then that kind of fade away. In New World's case, everyone was hyping this up. I'm sitting here expecting 3, 4, 5, 6 expeditions to really just be there for meatiness. They have one expedition. One expedition. That is not enough to keep people like in under wraps for an expansion and then ready for the next one to come. It's just not. It hasn't been historically, and it's not because the game is already starved for content in the first. So I think the population will go up, but not by much. And then the other thing is that this is both a problem of open world type zone-based story experiences, whether they're theme park or sandboxes. You still have to build a zone, and that zone has to be serviceable and have content, and you have to put assets into it. In the case of theme park games, the problem with them is that once you build the zone, it's useless, meaning that after you complete it, there's no use to it anymore. So literally, you're putting all this effort into a zone that somebody's going to leave and never come back to. So as you can imagine, that's incredibly perishable, right, as a content form, versus building a zone that just has like emergent gameplay modifiers that's just literally goes off, right? Like I would say more akin to something like Guild Wars, or maybe even further than that, right? So it's just, this isn't enough to chew on. One weapon, one expedition, a zone, it's just not enough. And I'm telling you guys that the population will go up, but it's not going to go up for very long, because it can't. Because this is literally just logic, right? The content has to be perishable if it's a theme park, which means that it's going to be consumed. When it's consumed, people are going to get bored of it. When they're bored of it again, you have the same problem that you keep having with New World, which is that they're trying to build a theme park after the fact, despite being a sandbox initially, shifting towards that. It's just not a good design, and it's why I've said consistently, and I said before the game even failed, technically, that it was going to fail, because I couldn't see that and notice that they were hitching their ride to that still, which is essentially just not just doing the best. I don't even think it's doing the best with the situation. I think it's trying to do the easiest with a bad situation. Ignoring theme park games. What's up, Limpas? Yeah, it's more like they just didn't launch it with any PvE content and then suddenly decided to make it a PvE game. And as you can imagine, it had a lot of problems. It's basically like Destiny 2 zones where you only visit once, essentially. Yeah, the economy and so it's funny because like I can laugh at economy things, like especially like RuneScape, you know, things like, but I can't laugh at New World as much because I was told by other players that the economy was borked and it was not gonna work. And as soon as it launched, it broke. So it was just like, when things like that happen for me, like as much as I make my series around covering dead or dying games, like I don't revel in it. I don't want to. So like, I'm kind of like sad that even was such a like prevalent thing that just basically ruins a sandbox style or theme park game really even as well, in a sense, I think. So to talk about the editorials I put out, let me pull up, because I already figured out which order I put them in. Okay, so I first put out a video talking about how to make online games social that basically nobody watched. And that's the problem I've always explained to you guys with theory-based games, is that I got a lot more hate and like I got like insanely way more comments on my solo MMO, soloable MMO video, which is not talking about solo play, by the way. It's talking about a soloable MMO, which is a massive multiplayer online game, which is not what Final Fantasy XIV is, which is not what Guild Wars 2 is. Sorry, they're not massive games. You can say that they're massive multiplayer online games, and I will argue that they're not that massive. So in the end, we'll just seem like we're kind of splitting hairs because we're saying the same thing. But that got like 3 times the views as my how to make a social game, and like 7 times the comments, to point out the absurdity of putting technical content and educational content on YouTube. Is that that's a video that's literally telling people how to make a social game, and yet people would rather react to the fact that either they are lacking in social ability or in understanding the concepts of what a social world is. And like it's frustrating, but it just, for me, it's more like it just sucks for the player base and the people that are commenting that kind of stuff, because it's just like you had a chance to go watch a video that was going to teach you how this stuff works, and instead you're just reacting basically emotionally to stuff that you don't really understand that well. And while I can understand that, like on a base sense, like this is a video, which means you could just like take your time and like look up or research or listen to it back or watch another video in the sequence of the editorial. Meaning you don't have to just choose ignorance or choose an emotional reaction. Now, to go into how to make an online game social as a video, I actually really like the video. What I talk about in that video is being a world and trying to mimic a world means that you have to actually mimic things that exist in a world. So for example, like if you want to build social spaces, or if you want to have social places, you need to build social spaces. Whether that be a third, fourth place, whether that be a bar, a diner, a cantina, a square, a market, you get the idea. You need to create places like this that create opportunities for social interaction. I also mentioned that there's some levers and things that you can mess with that also increase social interaction in your game. For example, having a better economy. For example, having a more group-focused game is going to make your game more social. For example, having social spaces to wind down whenever you're not grinding or fighting. That's also going to be important. So as you can see, there's it's kind of ubiquitous in a sense. Like people feel like, well, how do you make a game social? It seems like it, but the main important thing that I want people to take away from that video, and let me pull up the script too, because I don't feel like watching the video on stream, because whenever you watch videos on stream, it's like hard to like pause and unpause, in my opinion. Okay, so I wrote some rules here for creating a social world. These are very simple, which is why I wish people would have watched this video. The creator or creators must, of the game that they're building, the social world, must socialize or understand socialization. That's because if you don't understand it, you're not going to know how to produce it and how other people can produce it when they're not the same as you with the same interests as you. See what I'm saying? The reason that many online games aren't social is because the people that are creating them aren't very social or understand how to be social. You can see why this would be a big problem, right? The second thing that I talk about is that when you design a world, there must be systems with such to force, incentivize, and reward socialization. This is why new people responding to the Soloable video didn't watch this one, is because there is no magical one way to create socialization, meaning that forcing it is not the solution. That's delusion, right? Rewarding it isn't the only way. You actually have to do all three of these, and I'll tell you why. If you force it, you create inverse negative relationships with people who already don't fit into such a system, will feel even more negatively impacted by such. Hence a lot of the negative comments I get on these types of videos. And if you incentivize such but don't provide actual mechanisms, then you're just pushing people towards it, but they're not going to socialize. This happens in games that just have features that are socialized or socialization based, but people never use them, because why would you? There's no point, right? And rewarding socialization is a bit of an oxymoron, and I want people to understand that, because while rewarding it might not seem like it makes sense because rewarding is the social experience in itself, you still need to provide people with benefits and actually kind of train their muscles, so to say, to actually reward socialization. And the last one that I mention is regarding the rules must be taken seriously and enforced. This is important because if people don't respect the rules of a world, and thus the rules of society and socialization, then it unravels the world that they're living in. Especially because we're talking about constructed worlds, which means that we're not good enough at making them to just ignore such issues. So you can see this on PvP worlds where the game can't function because of rampant ganking, or on PvE games where people can create opposite faction characters and dominate the in-game, right? At the end of the day, it's a game, which means that it's trying to be fun. And regardless if it's trying to be a world or not, players can mostly ignore the social world and rules. But the problem with such is that the more social the world, the more massive the world, the more it hurts other people that are being social and enjoying the world. And so thus rules are specific to worlds. So for people that are getting, angry or butthurt, because I'm sorry, that's what it is, because you're not understanding at all what I'm talking about, which I will take some blame on when I get to that video in a second, because I messed up on something, but is that like what you're not understanding is that rules are specific to a world. So if you're playing an online RPG or a game that's not very massive, if you don't like to call it anything else, then you have to at least admit it's not very massive, because that's just true, right, logically. Then you're basically saying that you don't care if that world is being social and incentivizing sociality throughout the entirety of the world. So meaning that you getting offended about such is literally pointless. Like it's like, it's honestly kind of funny for me that people that literally this concept doesn't even apply to would get offended about it because they don't even understand it. And that's the problem, is that because people feel like MMORPG is the only term that exists, which doesn't even make logical sense because it never was the only term that exists, but also doesn't make logical sense for being the only term that exists because it's too wide of an umbrella to actually know what kind of game you're discussing. When the developers that are making these games know when they're making a game that's massive or not, right? Like Yoshi P knows when Dragon Quest is not a massive online game, but people call it that, right? But it was an online game. So like, I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, he's still gonna call it an online game, but everyone else is gonna call it a massive online game. Fast forward to Final Fantasy XIV. The website in Final Fantasy XIV in Japan and so on and so forth, and their material, they just call it an online world. Or an online RPG. They don't even say massive multiplayer online RPG. The majority of massive multiplayer online RPG comes from Western media, and then comes from Square's representation of the Western media. Like, you can actually go look this up. And while it might not mean anything to anybody else, it means something because Japanese developers don't make massive games. There's almost zero massive online RPGs that are created by Japanese companies. And that's okay, because they don't have to make the same game as everybody else. And not every game has to be massive, which is something that unfortunately people struggled with a lot, because when people's feelings get hurt, they're less likely to take in whatever you're talking about. And so if you sometimes stroke the flame, so to say, by either talking about something controversial or just poking at people that are, are going to be sensitive about something, you're inviting that into your world. There's a lot more theory in that video, but just go watch the video if you want to dive more into kind of like how it works. The next video I did is about how Baldur's Gate 3 can dictate and impact and educate MMOs. And this was for me like just a chance to talk about a game that's not only doing really well, but is, I think, very impactful going forward. And the reason being is, for people that don't know, like, online RPGs come from tabletop RPGs just like all RPGs do. The problem is that it hasn't always had the most popular online games. Well, Baldur's Gate has actually kind of thrown that on its head, because suddenly it's this massively popular single-player game that also is massively popular in multiplayer and incredibly successful at it. And in that video, it's a pretty simple video, I detail basically how and what things MMOs could learn from with them. And there were some funny comments I got in that video. I wish I would have saved them because I don't remember them off the top of my head, but like a couple of them were like, yeah, but like, you add competitiveness into the equation and suddenly everything's thrown away. It's like, okay, first off, PvP exists in D&D. Competitiveness exists in D&D. The DM is competing against the players, by the way, most of the time. And second off, the players are sometimes competing against each other. So this idea that like some players who don't play D&D like to talk about for some reason, that like, oh, PvP doesn't exist in any other context besides just the real world or something. It's like, well, no, PvP and conflict and permadeath is actually key markers of Baldur's Gate. Or rather, well, you know what I mean, D&D. Meaning that they're incredibly a hardcore game. It's always been hardcore. You can change the rules, that's the best part about it, is you can just take away permadeath, right, if you're playing with your friends, or you could make your DM kind of more of your homie instead of trying to be competitive against you. There's ways you can change that stuff. But it kind of cracks me up that people will talk about like PvP and competition doesn't exist in the context of a D&D game. It's like, have you ever played D&D? Like, it can be surprisingly competitive, like in ways you wouldn't even imagine, you know what I mean? So that video wasn't too controversial, but it was more that I think that, again, as I do more editorials, my goal is to expose more people to the actual like concepts and ideas behind these games and worlds, so then they will understand the entire genre and everything more further going forward. But the problem with doing that is that by doing such, I'm gonna have to talk about stuff that people don't like to talk about or people don't necessarily understand, so they will respond very passionately. Which brings me into my next point, the soloable MMO video. So one thing I want to fully admit, and somebody actually posted this on the video as criticism, and they were absolutely spot on. They mentioned that I should have referenced my MMORPG explanation video and my MMORPG explanation video in the very beginning of the video, since I referenced those points as things that people should kind of understand. Now, I explain them slightly in the video, but I don't dedicate enough time to kind of like distinguishing what the differences are between them. So what that creates is, this has been the problem in the industry for the past 10 years, is immediate confusion, because everybody who's playing an online RPG feels like theirs is massive because they think massive is a cool word, and they think it's cool to be considered a massive game for literally no logical reason. Like, there's no reason for like particular games to even be considered massive, but people just like massive multiplayer online RPG. It was a supremely successful word. In fact, that's what I'm working on in my next video right now, is describing kind of like the specific differences between these two, and how if you're treating it like a competition between them, then I mean you're kind of just being not just cringe, but like illogical, because there's no point in competing against them. Like, I was seeing MMO fans post on the video as well. I'm not just throwing shade at MMORPG or online RPG fans. It was MMO fans also saying, like, see, this is the problem. It's all these solo players and they're ruining RPGs. And it's like, relax, bro. Like, the whole video I'm talking about that both of these styles of play can exist, but I'm specifically talking about the issues of an MMO being soloable, right? Which is an issue. That's not a debate. Our world being soloable is not a debate. This is delusion. The amount of comments I was getting that were debating that stuff, that is literally delusional. Oh my god. Like, for example, I got a guy that came into our Discord who my Discord members logicked him out of his position without me even having to say anything. But the point is that he came in and his point was like, what did I say that was like offensive because I got moderated? And, you know, I was curious, so he posted whatever he said. And this is how, unfortunately, people that don't have the best social skills work, is they don't understand when they're saying something that's offensive to people, which is surprisingly something that's not good for being social. And what the guy said is he was referring to, well, no, me going to the movies is soloable because the ticket giver is an NPC. And it's like, they're a human being, actually. No, they're a human being, actually. Did you know that? That is actually literally a human being. That's what's crazy, bro, is like, there are actual humans out there that you interact. Isn't that insane, dude? Like, what? There's humans out there that you interact with? They're not NPCs? Yeah, they're human beings, guys. And I saw this comment like a dozen times. Like, keep that shit to your friends or talk to your like homies when you're making jokes, but like, these are human beings. When we're having serious intellectual discussions about worlds, like, I don't want to hear people talking about human beings being non-human. Sorry, that's just dehumanizing, and also not really helpful for a discussion, because it's just demonstrating you don't understand socialization and apparently how to like offend people. Anyway, so that I will admit that person that mentioned that I should have at least did a callback to those videos is probably right. I should have. Now, the thing that I will dive into right away is that it's crazy that the things that I talk about in the video are the exact kind of comments that I got. For example, I talked about in the video that the drive that people have to be a solo player in a massive online world is driven by things like being shy, being antisocial, being an introvert, not having friends. That actually is a thing that drives you as a solo player. How do I know that? I was a solo player who learned how to socialize online. So the reason why I say this video, and I'm not changing my positions because people felt offended, is because I lived this experience. I was a solo player. This is well known that people know about me, especially people that watch me a lot. I was a solo PKer. I was a solo RPer. I played solo for at least like the first 3 years of my MMO experiences. because I didn't know what grouping was. Like most players wouldn't, just inherently, right? And I was also a kid, literally a child. So I didn't know what I was getting into. So I was living soloable experiences in these MMOs. Now that being said, was I actually solo? No, and I can tell you that because I was playing Galaxies and Habbo Hotel and games like that where I was watching other players socialize. And I was seeing, wow, like that's so cool. Like I'm a part of like something, you know? So that helped teach me, wait a minute, I can get involved into these channels, right? And I can start doing that sort of stuff. Now, what people don't get about the problems of that, which is what I said that there's problems with this, and people thought that I meant that if you like to play a game solo, you are a problem. I literally say in the video, Nerd Slayer, are you saying that I shouldn't play games solo? No, not at all, actually. And people stopped watching because that was like halfway through the video. I mean, the amount of people that were triggered over absolutely garbage in this video was, I mean, it's pathetic, guys. Like, I'm getting a bunch of people that basically are exhibiting antisocial behaviors or just ignorance, not understanding the concepts being displayed, and getting offended when they don't even know what I'm talking about and think that I'm offending them in a way for some reason because they don't understand what I'm talking about, right? Someone was even saying, I saw a couple comments saying, oh, it's just another guy hating on theme park MMOs or just hating on Final Fantasy XIV. And I gave my script to this guy. Literally, where in the script did I ever say anything bad about Final Fantasy XIV? Never did. And if you can't understand that, you are the problem. You're being a diehard fanboy that doesn't serve you or the industry at all. Like, what's the benefit there? What I say in the video is that Final Fantasy XIV and SWTOR, my two big examples, do not try to be massive at all. There's no effort to be massive by these games. They focus all their effort, and this is said in a fucking interview by Yoshi P, primarily on solo and small-scale players. That's genius. I say that in the video. This is genius. This style of game is genius. Online RPGs, non-massive RPGs, whatever you want to call them, are massively successful, no pun intended, are massively successful. That's not a debate. My opinion there wouldn't even matter even if I didn't like the games. And I love them. PSO is one of my favorite games. Guild Wars is one of my favorite games ever. And that's why it's like, people have gotten so allergic to discussion and debate that whenever somebody says something against their feelings, not even their position, because most of the time they don't even know what their position is, they have to assign random things to that person to make them debatable. Oh, it's because he hates online RPGs. It's because he hates Final Fantasy. What else can I say? It's because he only likes PvP. Because like all this weird delusion. It's like, no, online RPGs, love them. Did you watch my PSO video? I called it a love letter. It's one of my favorite games ever. I think it's one of the most impactful games ever. People are still trying to say that I don't like this genre, this entire genre that I cut my teeth on growing up. Like, for people that understand Guild Wars, I beat every expansion. Like, I was in Hall of Heroes. I even was doing the pre-grind for Guild Wars 2 cosmetics. Like, these are Guild Wars 1 was called a co-RPG. It was not called a massive RPG. So that's why this stuff matters to me, is I was there playing these games when they weren't being called massive online games, because they weren't. Not everything was a massive online game. It doesn't make any sense to just make that opinion. But yeah, 0 cents. I think I saw your point, is that at least apparently they make good money from doing it. I'm missing your context of the discussion. I'm really far behind because I'm like ranting a lot today. But I wanted to say that if it wasn't for me doing sponsors on these kinds of videos, I wouldn't be able to do them. They're not profitable for me. Which is, you know, I'm not going to sit here and cry about that stuff because, you know, it was like 3 years ago that I started crying about that. But you just realize that, like, that's why I rely on sponsors in these videos, to do content like that. It's because otherwise people just won't watch educational content, excuse me, or more editorial content. And I understand that to an extent. It's not as, like, serious. It's not as well polished and produced. But it is helpful, and it will kind of free you from having these kind of like logical traps, right? And not understanding things that don't benefit you as a person, right? Like, for example, like calling a game that the creator of the game doesn't think is that massive is your prerogative. It's your decision. You can make that choice. But when Yoshi P is saying that his game doesn't require roleplay actors in the world, aka being a massive world primarily, I would take him seriously because I think he knows what he's talking about. I think he knows exactly what he's talking about because when he talks about games like EVE Online and Ultima, which he mentions are his favorite games, by the way, he says that he doesn't think that other online games offer those experiences. He's right. No. Those are games that rely primarily on emergent experiences. And so that's what I mean is like, I'm trying to educate a player base that doesn't understand what the creator of the game understands. And so it's like, it's been difficult so far, but I'm not going to quit because my job as an educator, whether that pisses people off or not, I will just keep going down that path. So the next video, I'm going to talk about the problems that I didn't cover that I mentioned that I should have, which is talking about the comparison between the two more specifically, and also trying to just get rid of this weird rivalry and like hate that these player bases are having for each other. That shit's just cringe, dude. You can have your favorite games. I get that, like, but I'm just saying, like, trying to prescribe hate, trying to pick sides, trying to say content creators like me are picking sides, or even people like Josh or whoever else is like, no, we just like online games. That covers the gamut of them. Like, we're not picking sides. Like, maybe they have favorites, other YouTube content creators that make online content, and maybe I do specific games. But my genres aren't specifically favorite. I love both genres, right? And they benefit both games, right? Both games or both genres benefit both types of players. Players that want small, specific types of online experiences, still online, or the one that wants the massive, big experience, PvP, you know, the big raid, the big whatever else, right? The open dungeon, the open world dungeon, the Ashes of Creation. I'm saying that this should be for everybody. But people saw a video talking about a specific type of player and took that like I'm saying solo players can't play game. Like, that's why I stopped responding in the comments. Well, I just responded once or twice now, but I stopped responding for like before that because it was just like, I realized that if people aren't even going to take the time to even watch the video to understand what I'm talking about, and even covering the specific parts that people are trying to use as criticism, for me is like, it's not just like annoying because I get people not understanding concepts, but it's like when I'm calling out specifically what you're saying, it's like, it's just a waste of time to engage with that, I'll be honest. Like, I'm saying in the video that, of course, you could be a solo player. Like, why? Literally, why would? Like, if you think someone's gonna hold a gun to you and say you can't play solo, like, what are you talking about? The video is talking about being a solo player in a massive world, which is always a disadvantage, no matter how much it hurts your feelings. Get past that hurting your feelings part, because if it hurts your feelings, it means that you're not being realistic about how our world functions and how worlds function. And that's what I think the majority of these comments are stemming from. Sorry. It's stemming from people that are dehumanizing people and people that don't understand how to be social. So they're taking it offense that like suddenly they can't, like I saw people saying, oh wow, I can't have a life and kids and come home and want to play by myself. And literally, where in the video did I say you can't have a life and play games by yourself? Like, seriously, like where in the video did I say that? I said if you're a solo-centric player in a massive world, you cause a problem in that game, actually. That is true. Like, because that's how worlds function. Literally, that's how they function. That's not like, oh, well, you're just opinion. No, literally. We're humans. We're social creatures. The amount of studies that are behind this, which is why no one challenged me on the science, like, is absurd. It's like, we're so hardwired for sociality. And yet, I'm getting people defending their ability to be antisocial despite me never saying you can't do that in specific contexts of games. You can. That's the point of those kinds of games. Online RPGs and Japanese RPGs, or Japanese online RPGs to be specific, the genius of them is that you don't require a large friend circle. You don't require a large group. You don't require a large guild. You don't. That's why they're so genius. These weird spinning narratives behind me not liking an entire genre of game that I love like dearly because I'm describing something about a world, it's absurd. So yeah, my next video will cover some of this stuff here, but yeah, it's just sad to see people not understand what it means to be social in a world. And sad that people still think and are trying to argue that all massive online RPGs are all the same level of massive. They're all equally massive, right? They all allow for thousands of players on screens, despite Final Fantasy XIV locking players in later zones to 250 players. I know that's a fact. I know that's a hard number. You want to hear what Guild Wars 2's number is? You want to hear what ESO's number is? They all have a number, guys. And that's where the argument comes. How massive are they? If you don't want to argue they're not massive at all, like Limpos and I have discussed, okay, fair. But how massive are they? If they're not that massive, what's the problem here? They don't need to be. They're better for the kind of player that they're not for. You know what I'm saying? Like, small-scale online RPGs are going to be better for the small-scale online RPG player. There is no complaint. You don't have a complaint. Nobody's persecuting you. You don't have to go into the comments and, oh, but please. Like, dude, nobody is persecuting you. Right now, online RPGs and non-massive online RPGs are the majority of them. They've won. There's no persecution anymore. You know, maybe if this was 2002 or 3 or 4, where it was just like Guild Wars 1 and Phantasy Star, back then, yeah, you could have been banging the drum like, man, they don't love us solo players. This bullshit. I have a job, man. I have a life. I have kids, bro. Fuck this shit. Fair enough, man. A lot of those old MMORPGs did not respect your time that well. This is 2020, motherfucker. Every popular fucking game right now that's online in an RPG is not massive. Like, they're not massive. That's okay. If that's not the kind of game that you would want to play, you know, like, it becomes a problem for you. So, for example, if you're a massive centric player, or you want to play with massive, you know, players around you in big open zones and Ashes of Creation or whatever game, right? Then yeah, maybe ESO and Final Fantasy and Guild Wars and SWTOR don't feel like they're the game for you. Hey, why would that hurt anybody else's feelings? That's the weird thing is that it's solo players telling other players, and this is a point I made in the video, telling other players, don't play those massive kinds of games. They don't allow me to play. Excuse me? They're trying to play a game that's social because they want to play one that's social. You don't have to play that game, which is a point that I made in this video. If you don't want to play with massive groups of players, you don't have to. In fact, right now in modern 2023, it's even easier than ever. Just group up in a game or not even talk to a player. I mentioned in the video. Are you excited about the next Farming Simulator League season? Yes, I am. I'm super excited. Yeah, and that was the other funny thing is that it made me laugh where it's like, there's comments there that were saying like, wow, I can't believe Nerd would respond to somebody's argument and attack their position. Oh my, are you kidding me? Like, relax, bro. Hop off the fucking high horse or learn what discourse and fucking debate is. Or just hop off my nutsack, because if you think that I'm not gonna sit there and debate ideas that I believe in and that I care about passionately because you watch my video? Like, what's the logic there? You watch my video, so then therefore I shouldn't want to engage with discussion with you. What? You're part of the problem of not understanding sociality, bro. The point is to socialize. I want people to debate me. I want people to attack my positions. Just like I want to do the same. That's how it works, right? The uber sensitivity of the fans that were posting on some of these videos was all people I didn't recognize, let me just be honest, but it's like people that are like literally acting like in disgust and like scoffing like on a high horse that I'm debating the position that I presented in the video. Like, dear God, the travesty that I'm sticking by my position and points and arguing with you based on them, despite you not making any, and expecting that you make an argument and making fun of you when you can't. That's how I've always worked and will always work. Not all educators work like that, guys. Some educators will sit there and be like, well, let me tell you, Tommy, Not me. I don't have the patience for that. I'm sorry. I know it's a virtue. I'm not the best at it. I'm working on trying to teach children because I want to be a martial art instructor. Not the main instructor, but I still want to teach kids. So trust me, I'm working on it. But the point is that I'm not that kind of educator, okay? I want to focus on the ideas and focus on what we can talk about that's unique and different and challenging and new wrinkles or pushing the industry forward. That's all I care about. I don't care about hurting your feelings or you hurting my feelings. I'm being genuine. I care about the industry moving this stuff forward. That doesn't mean that we're rude to each other for no reason. For people that know me, respect and being polite is the things that I value the most. The thing is that if you're going to respond in disgust that I'm debating you, then I'm probably going to be insulting, because not only are you not understanding the point of making editorials, which is to create discussion, you're not understanding the point of me as a person, which is deeply entrenched in debate and discussion and social ideas, hence the videos. But also you're not understanding that this is what I'm discussing is lacking at the moment, is people aren't willing to be social because they're pushing against ideas that they have no business pushing against. Something that I saw Drowercorn mentioned, he's absolutely, or they, excuse me, is absolutely right when they say, in reality, it should be easy to see that all of these ideas have an appropriate time and place. Not all MMOs should be like this. That was never stated in the video, never my position, never been my position. I've played a gamut of MMOs, probably more than anybody else, especially at significant links. It has nothing to do with wanting to play only specific kinds. It's that there are appropriate times and places in specific games with rules within them, right? Which means that like nobody should ever be telling you this is how all of them should be. But if you're building a massive world, then yes, it's going to function like a massive world. If that hurts your feelings as a social player, I explained that in my other video that people ignored. This is your opportunity to learn to be social. This is your opportunity to make friends. This is your opportunity to practice. This is your opportunity to push against this hard feeling, this anxiety that is almost overwhelming in person sometimes. Without those opportunities, and you only have the online RPG, the non-massive variants, the chances of you being social in just those are lower. There's a plus side to it, but there's a downside to it. And that's one thing that some of these solo players and less social players also don't want to admit, is that they want these games to be made for them. You are part of the problem. And I guess you didn't like that I called you out on that. What I'm trying to say is that just like MMO players going into Final Fantasy XIV and being like, how come it's not more massive, is kind of silly past this point, right? Like 20 million expansions later. It's also silly for the reverse to be the case. Oh, wow, I have to group with people? What the fuck? It's like, yes. Yes. Or you don't have to if you don't want to play that game. Not all games are going to be made for you. But I feel like solo players suffer with that the most. And that's the position that I presented in the video. You think I meme too much in comments? In those comments? Yeah, probably. Nerd out here calling developers introverted losers. Sadly, I've met a lot of developers, and while I would not call them a loser, because being introverted doesn't make you a loser, being unable to be social and defending it as a position. Just saying. Death of Hearthstone win? I don't know. Yeah, that's the American website. The boss, thanks for proving my point. Oh, wait a minute. Did you write that there? Isn't that the one that you doctored up? I couldn't remember. I'm pretty sure you tricked me last time you used the same meme. Wait, now I'm gonna look that up. This is the problem with memes, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so here I'm gonna choose the North American website. Yeah, he is trolling. That's a good troll though, because it does really look real. Yeah, you notice how when you go to even the American website, it doesn't say MMORPG on it? Why does no one ever notice that? For people who like obsess about this game so much, they don't even notice that. Which I'm sorry, I know it's a bit of a meme at this point that I always use, just like Mimpos uses that meme. But it's just like, yeah, at this point I always kind of chuckle at that one because it's like, I mean, I don't even use the name. Yeah, I think I didn't do a good enough job of that, Des. The reason to distinguish. I do really like the graphic design in PSO. That's why PSO2, like, I know people want me to like it, but it feels too anime for me. The Nikkei ad, by the way, was funny because as I was saying it, I didn't know they were going to make me say the anime girl thing. so, so I was just saying it. I was like, an anime girl and girls. And I was like, what the fuck? I had to like say it again because I didn't even know. Like, I like undersold it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, well, Mr. Zero sends the amount of those videos or those comments was probably why I got annoyed and stopped responding, period. Is because I want to engage with people when I'm seeing so many comments that are specifically detailed about things that I covered in the video. It's just like, you can sit there and tell me you watched the video all you want, but I know you're lying because I wrote the video, which means that there's parts in the video that I know that I wrote and I have the script and I linked it for everyone, which means that I could literally go comb through, pick out the exact parts where I said, I mean, I'll literally pull it up on screen, like, to show you, like, kind of the absurdity of why you shouldn't get so emotionally impacted before you have the time to kind of respond to something rationally. Because if you do that, then you're gonna just wade in and have no fucking clue what you're doing. So check this out. So here is the video. So when we scroll down here, I talked about solo play in the context of a world. People said, wow, he didn't talk about solo play that much, and why? I'm talking about it in the context of a world, right? So that's the first part people didn't really pay attention to. Either they enjoy MMOs or online RPGs. These are not the same style of game. Like, I distinguish that, and I've always distinguished that. The point that guy made, that Des also made, is that I probably should have dedicated a little bit more time to explaining that, even though I have before, and I agree with that. Now, to scroll down here, I want to start with the concept of solo play in our world, right? Scroll ahead because that part's very simple. So why do so many people and players crave solo play in online games? I said because video games are supposed to be ideal worlds and experiences, right? So first off, they're supposed to be ideal worlds and experiences, which means if you don't have time, they're ideal for you. But they're also for people who struggle with making friends or being social, they don't want to be reminded in the game that they're supposed to be having fun, that they can't make friends or be social. Or in the case of people that don't have a lot of time, which I didn't know I even needed to mention that because, bro, if you don't have time, just don't like play games that much. Like I don't like I'm not the arbiter of how much time you should be playing a game. Like literally, it's like games are ideal worlds. And online RPGs are specifically ideal for players without a lot of time, right? MMOs offer worlds that allow you to do things truly in your ways by yourself that don't really mimic reality, right? Because NPCs aren't actual people. Skipping forward, so think about the story and characters you learn about and encounter in Final Fantasy XIV. You don't need friends or to socialize in the game. You just need to group find and complete the group content if you choose. Nothing is insulting about that. That's literally a fact. That's exactly how Final Fantasy XIV works. You don't have to socialize. You just need to group find. And you don't even have to if you don't want to complete all of the group content. And this is the part that I'm referencing, this entire paragraph, honestly. So, Nerdslayer, are you saying you can't play by yourself? No, because you can absolutely try to do many things in our world by yourself. You just won't go far. So playing online games as a solo player without intent to socialize or group means in most cases you're playing in a suboptimal way. This is a literal definition, meaning that suboptimal means that it's not the most optimal to play a game that's designed around other players by yourself. That's just true. Like, I realize that can hurt your feelings or make you feel like, yeah, but I have to work or whatever, like, is your response. But that doesn't matter. You still are. like even games that are non-massive games, like just straight multiplayer games, have a benefit for playing with other players, guys. Because players are better than NPCs. Like, I don't know why that was even something that I even had to cover there, but that was something that I got a lot in the video. And then I mentioned here, having a preference is one thing, but wanting a game to be built for solo play is selfish, and it doesn't benefit the collective. just the individual, right? I'm not talking about your individual play. I mean, logically, I state. Playing a game focused on solo players would make more sense, right? Playing a solo-focused game would make more sense, right? But again, such players still want the feeling of being in a world, even if it's a pseudo one. Which is a transition into the next point, which is that's the strength of non-massive online RPGs. I say tremendous strength. They don't even try to hide the fact that they aren't massive. Not an insult. This is literally true. And aren't trying to make players actors the focus of the game. Instead, games like SWTOR and Final Fantasy XIV focus on ding, 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 individual stories. There was a massive lack of personal stories before in online RPGs, and these two games swoop in and took hold of that market, right? And what I mentioned, which is a direct quote, by the way, that I have a backup from Yoshi P himself, is that these games weren't popular because they were built as soloable games, but they were built for having individual stories in them that then attract and satisfy players who like solo games or content. So meaning that Yoshi P states in his interview that he created a game that facilitates solo play, even though it's an online game. So it makes players feel like it's soloable, but he specifically states he didn't make it for solo players. Like, when the guy of the game that I'm referencing is backing me up, it's like, that's when you know people that are jumping to the defense of stuff like this don't even know what they're talking about. And that's okay. Being ignorant is not a sin or not a bad thing. But debating me over your ignorance is just strange, because it's just like, you could have went and watched the solo video or listened to some of Yoshi P's interviews. He's incredibly educated and actually very much explains very nicely to people what kind of game he made, how it was successful, how he got to that point, and which games he likes the most that are online. He's very honest about all of that stuff. Like, he doesn't have to lie, right? See, this is something that I mentioned right here. While this is something, being solo content focused games, that's enjoyed by the people that enjoy those types of games, with lack of massive and group content, suddenly you question, why are you playing a solo experience online versus an offline one? And that's a bit of my personal problem with online RPGs who focus so much on personal story. Do you understand what I'm saying there? People, again, find that as, oh, see, he doesn't like them. Oh, wow, he's a hater. It's like, guys, I'm literally arguing for you. I'm arguing that if Final Fantasy XIV didn't have to do a Realm Reborn in the first place, and they just optimized for being a co-op fucking online Final Fantasy game, it would have been better in every single way. There's no debate. There's no way to debate that. I've never heard anyone make a serious debate about that. Same thing applies for SWTOR. They even regressed in terms of being massive. Imagine if they never tried. Imagine if they never tried. These are not debatable positions. I'm not saying that they're suddenly not online anymore. No, I'm saying imagine if they didn't even try to be massive. They would have been better in the ways that you enjoy them anyway. Which is why I'm not arguing against you and how I know people didn't watch the video when they think that. I'm literally arguing for you. Like, what are we talking about here? And I even mentioned how developers can appeal to solo-minded players in my point 4, and how games for solo players and massive players can coexist. And both of these games can actually appeal to both types of players. But then I talk about the appeal to appealing to such too much. And I use literal quote and backup from Yoshi P himself, talking about that having the desire to create a massive multiplayer online game is difficult and requires proper support. That's not what Final Fantasy XIV is what he's saying. But it's still massively successful. It's still an online RPG, and still Final Fantasy, and still the game you love. And he still loves it, and he's still working on it. None of that changed any of that. Then I mentioned this. So why do online focused, or online single player focused RPGs still create problems? You can't just hand wave them to the fans that feel like, oh yeah, but I do have a game for me. Well, technically you still have some problems. Problems is that your graphics suck in those games. The problems are that the visuals aren't that good. The problems is that the gameplay is made worse because of crossplay and because of latency issues. There's a lot of problems regarding that. Problems of the MMO and online RPG industry. The people that try to like debate that stuff, and like I get if it's people debating like, okay, well I love Final Fantasy X more than Final Fantasy X. Look, I'll just tell you very honestly, if you like Final Fantasy 14 story than more of the other Final Fantasies, we'll never be able to have any serious discussion about Final Fantasy. And that's okay. Like, that's fine. We can still respect each other. I can still like you. But I'm just going to tell you very honestly, the story so far going through Heavensward, which people tell me, oh, it gets better. It's like, guys, better than what? Final Fantasy 3? 5? Like, which Final Fantasy is it better than? 6? No. 4? No. 7? No. 8? No. 9? No. 10? No. 12? No. 13? 15? 16? No. I guess for me, it's like so many of the MMO and online RPG aspects cheapen so much of the experience that it's like, how could Final Fantasy 14 be better for me? As a Final Fantasy fan, how could it be, I guess? Maybe if I had like a group that we were grinding together and we did all the content together and we created all these experiences, maybe that. But otherwise, I guess, like, why would it be the de facto Final Fantasy experience for me? It hasn't been. I've still gone back and played the other Final Fantasies too. I still enjoy the story more. I don't know, I guess I'm just a Final Fantasy fan. I'm just a washed Final Fantasy fan. It's a criticism people have, Des, about why you should even distinguish between the two. But it's not between massive and non-massive. The point that people make is that, oh, you should just call them all massive online RPGs. And simultaneously will say, well, this game's not that massive. You see the problem of the word is that you're using it to describe games that it doesn't even apply to. So why use it when other words already existed, including existed in the Japanese market way before anything there was called online RPG or a massive online RPG? Like, people want to feel like it's also just my opinion, and that's funny because I see that a couple of times. Oh, like, you're just saying like it's your opinion. You're getting mad when people post their opinions. Like, bro, it's not opinion based that the Japanese market doesn't make MMO. Like, you want to look one up for me? How come no one's looking one up for me? How come no one's like fact checking me? Because you can't. So let's not debate over useless, like, worthless shit. Japanese market doesn't make games like that. The Korean market does, which means not all Asians are the same. Wow! Koreans are different than Japanese people. Whoa! Seriously, that's how I feel sometimes when I'm having discussions about online RPGs in Japan. It's like, I get that, like, we're not as like used to them, but like, they are not comparable to Korea. Like, they're not comparable, guys. I appreciate that, Pinderhead. I've been mealtime viewing for me. Man, you made me hungry. Saying mealtime, you made me hungry. Thank you for that. I actually appreciate that inspiration. I have like the biggest tournament in grappling, well, the open to the biggest tournament in grappling coming up next week. So I've been in like massive shape. In fact, I want to show off to Limpos because he's somebody that would actually. Alright, so. The lighting kind of sucks. Okay, there we go. As you can see, I'm in pretty good shape right now. Because I've been working out like insane. Limpos, that's what I told these guys. In the very beginning of the video, I was like, I had the discussion on my discord.gg/nerdslayer. One guy showed up! There's 600 complaints. No, I'm just kidding. There's 600 comments on this video. One guy showed up in Discord. One guy. Do you guys not understand the problem here? I was on the money about it, and people don't like that. And yeah, there's problems with the video, like I mentioned, but like, where's my proof is right there. This video has 600 like fucking comments and like whatever amount of views, like thousands of views. I got one guy who showed up in Discord and chatted. One guy. So that's why I don't want to hear shit about, oh, Nerd's mean, he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to teach, he doesn't want to. You guys sent one guy out of thousands of you. Do better if you want to learn more, or do better to give people benefit of the doubt and actually engage with them in a social setting. YouTube is not a social setting. It's a video compository or whatever, repository. You put videos up on there. The discussion is about the video itself, right? And creating their individual experiences about the video. The problem with editorials and why people think that I was like angry at people is that people were posting just their feelings and opinions about the video without actually engaging with the discussion and the points raised in the video, which is telling me either you don't respect me enough to do that with me, which is what I asked for in the very beginning, or you don't actually understand or didn't watch the video. And that's what it feels like primarily, is it feels like people not watching and just responding kind of emotionally to something that they just feel like, oh, this is yeah, it's like yeah, no. Then there was this one guy who posted, dude, I told this guy, I was like, hey man, like, you seem like you'll actually engage with me. Why don't you come to the Discord and post your long post there? This guy proceeds to post his post in response to me right after that. And like, dude, 20 timestamps with like fucking 20 different paragraphs. And I have one monitor right now, and so I'm sitting there trying to fucking like click on the video and like look at the video and like see what he's saying and respond because the menu's all the way down there and I have to scroll down and it's like, I literally just told the guy, I was like, look bro, I'm gonna try to respond to yours, but I'm gonna tell you straight up, like, if you don't come to my Discord, I'm not gonna engage with you anymore because you're not respecting me and my time and my social ability either. Like, coming in here like expecting me to like engage with you back and forth in a video discussion, like, what do you, like, I appreciate people posting on the video and having discussions on the video, but if you're trying to discuss with me on the video, I'm getting thousands of comments, or in this case hundreds. So what are the chances I can even engage with you? The other thing is, which everyone at this point should know this, when a YouTuber gets responded to, they don't get notification. I don't know I'm getting responded to. It's a thing I don't think people realize. I don't just not respond to you because I'm scared or because I forgot or like because I would. It's like, no, I don't even know that half the time you guys are responding to me, which is why it sucks, because it's like I'll like a comment or I'll respond to somebody, but I can't really engage with them because I don't even know if they respond after that. I have to comb through and go look for it myself. Star Rail. Did Nerd try Wayfinder? No, I did not. Yeah, well, like that was the problem that I had, that again, people got offended by. Oh, wow, Nerd doesn't want people to post their opinions. It's like, dude, I want you to like post your opinion, but I also want you to engage with the topic. And so when I'm getting posts that, man, I got 17 kids and like 30 wives and like I just don't have the time to play games anymore. So like, you're saying I can't play games? Like, no, no, I'm not saying that. In fact, I said in the video that there's pretty much an entire genre made for you. And it's the most popular genre right now. So why are you telling me that? That's what I said to one of the guys. I said, it's like, why are you telling me your life story? Like, genuinely, like, what relevance does it actually have to what's being presented? You're busy, so you can't play. Sorry. People were bringing that up like it's like, wow, oh shit, I never thought about that. Damn, people could be busy and have a life. I didn't have a YouTube career and work in corporate at the same time. I don't train full time and also work full time. Like, you guys don't think I know, like, busy, of course. That doesn't change the sign of the world. Yeah, PSO is the best, man. PSO 2 looks greasy. I've never heard anyone say that, but that's fucking hilarious. Yeah, so Drower Corn, the other thing about time, the reason why I don't always take it seriously as a discussion is not just because it's what everybody is going to say, but people will use it as a means to like not designing longer progression games or massive games. It's like, but you wouldn't play those games if you didn't have time. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't have time to go like dedicate myself to certain hobbies. I don't complain that I can't. Just don't do them. And I do something else with my time that's better suited for me. Yeah, like people will say that a lot, like, oh, it's because like people don't have time for MMOs anymore. That's why everything's like solo and small scale focused. It's like, Literally, how can you speak for everybody? And even then, like, people still know how to like portion their time and play for a few hours. It's not like you have to play for like 10 or 20 hours or something, right? You don't have to. A SWOTOR without stupidly huge distances between objectives, unrealistically wide and empty hallways. Yeah, and you having to skip from objective to objective and skip all the other quests that were basically abandoned. Better. See, I'm convinced people just think MMOs are from Japan. No, seriously. It's either that or they think that like Japan and Korea are like connected. That's what I think a lot of Westerners treat it. Like, what do you mean? What's the difference between these types of online RPGs, bro? They're both MMOs. That's them in their brain being like, Korea and Japan is connected, right? This is the same shit, bro. They're both MMOs, dude. Right? My favorite Japanese MMO is Dragon's Dogma. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, you get notifications for replies, but actual comments in the video you didn't see. Yeah, it's the opposite for me. Maybe it's because I get so many of them. Um, yeah, I get like whenever you first like join YouTube, you have notifications enabled, but just so we're clear, you disable pretty much all the major ones because you will literally get a headache and you will like die. Think about it. I have almost 400,000 subs. Imagine if I had sub notification on. Talking about Age of Wonders, I haven't even gotten the chance to play it yet. I am going to be heading out pretty soon though. Pretty hungry. Take it easy today. I trained twice yesterday. Who would have thought? It's kind of tiring when people are trying to like submit you shit. I'm just not eating enough. That'll be fixed today. Something big. But yeah, just YouTube's not the best place for conversations, and also sometimes it's weird. Like unless you approve somebody, like sometimes it'll even like YouTube auto moderator will like moderate comments from people you know that aren't even saying that much shit. Like one time I had a guy like I need to save more of these examples because the auto moderated stuff people will try to blame that on me. And it's like, okay, dude, if you're posting links or just straight like hateful or racist shit, like it's just gonna nick you. What do you want me to do? It's I work on the platform too, bro. It's not like I run YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't run YouTube. I work on YouTube, so they have their own way of kind of doing some things, and they will pull things that are posting links or trying to like whatever like post. They'll pull stuff like that. But sometimes they'll also pull like the most random shit. Like one time I had this guy say, "Yeah, man, and it sucked." That's all he said. He was like, "Yeah, and it sucked." Like what the fuck? I even went and looked at the conversation. He was like talking about like one specific thing, and I remember being like, damn, yeah. So there's gonna be people like that. I feel bad for them. They probably got moderated. They weren't really saying anything. Most people that get moderated got moderated for a reason. And also, there's this other thing too that's funny because people say that I get butthurt when I respond to somebody and say that, hey, if you don't actually make an argument, you'll get banned. To be clear, this is a rule on my channel. It's a rule on my Discord. It's a rule everywhere, which is that you actually have to engage in the discussion that you're participating in. And like, if you're going to refute it, you have to actually like provide evidence or make a position. So meaning that we created this rule to incentivize discussion, but also let people know that like, hey, this is a place you can come and actually have debate. Like it's set up to have debate. The problem is that people will act like that's a problem, that I would ban someone for not responding, when in reality, that's against my rules. Like I don't actually want people to just respond with feelings or kind of like negative comments without actually like further engaging in an actual discussion. So yeah, it's actually bannable to not engage in discussion. So, surprise, but yeah, and I think that that's just when critics talk about things in general, no matter how many caveats they put, there's always going to be people that feel like they're talking about them. And they're not, right? Like, for example, I tell people jokingly, but truthfully speaking, I don't like action games that much. Like the majority of all the famous action games, God of War, Elden Ring, Soulsborne games, like Metroidvania, like a Devil May Cry game, I don't care for them. Do I sit here and make it a point to tell everybody about that all the time? No, because the truth is not for me. I know that. You don't see me sit here and critique those games all the time. Really even at all. I don't really waste much time talking about them. But that's why, because I know they're not made for me. With MMOs, it's trickier because there's such a big umbrella that, as you can see, people are trying to make even bigger to apply to every kind of online game. It becomes literally, what are we discussing anymore? What is this kind of game? What even is an MMO? What are the identifying factors? You see the problem? The problem is that then everyone feels like, well, it's for me. It's for me. It's to be for me. That's for me. No, this one's for me. It's like, well, it's an online game. It's for many people. It has to be for many. It can't just be for one person. It can't just be for one style of player, right? Unless you're that confident that fill up all your player base with that one style of player. But yeah, I also think people just struggle with the fact that sometimes people can just not like something and not like it just for personal reasons. Yeah, I don't really care for. I'll give you guys like, and this is funny, I think, to see and hear contrasts from people. That's why I talk about this stuff, not so I can just be, oh, I'm just shit on things. But like, I'll tell you about Elden Ring. So I was watching one of my favorite streamers play Elden Ring, meaning that I would probably enjoy this, right? I was literally falling asleep. It was post-training. I came back. I was waiting on my food. I was like, I was sitting there like that's how those games make me feel. And most people are like totally surprised by that, but it's, again, it's just not really for me, you know? And that, trust me, people have tried to sell me on them in like 700 different ways. No, dude, trust me, bro. Like, trust me, bro. Like, if you got into this one, like, you know, like this would happen. Like, nah, man, like for real, bro. And it's like, I've tried all the action games, my guys. Just don't do anything. Narratives are too weak. The stories are too boring. Games are usually too easy. In fact, that's a problem I have with a lot of them. And then if they're not hard or too easy, then they're made hard for like arbitrary reasons, like camera movement, being slow. And see, I'm the opposite. I've heard people talk about that, which is interesting. I've heard people say that their ADD makes them not play RTSs. My ADD and my friend Sam's ADD, I think it makes us better. If I'm being honest, bro. Like, I kind of feel like it's a bit of our superpowers. Like, I got some memes. Alright, so check this out. This is my cousin and I playing a Master Tier. We got back into StarCraft because we're just bored of not having any RTSs to play and want to get ready for Stormgate. And we were playing against these master tier players. The first game we played against them, we beat them standard by just rushing them. Like straight on rushing them. And then the second game, I told my cousin, I was like, they're not going to expect this. And this is us killing them with our drones. This is called drone rushing. But yeah, these are master tier players. They have over 2,000 games. My cousin and I haven't played, I think at the time we played like in multiple years. Point being is not just that we're awesome, but it's because RTS games are very like particular in that they are very much based on reaction. So it's like there's ways to macro strategy your way through engagements. Like maybe AoE is a better example of that, Age of Empires. But in games like StarCraft and Warcraft, like you don't have the micro ability to win the fights. As you can see, even in Master Tier, you still lose, even to drones. And this is why it's one of my favorite ways to rush people, is because it all comes down to your ability to fight with your drones. And if you're able to do that effectively, then you win. But yeah, RTSs are just not that common, so you don't hear me talk about them much or do much content on them. But I love RTS. I kind of always felt like they were even better for me because of my weird craziness.
The best athletes, that willingness to show, do the work.
Okay, is this another one? Oh no. Oh, maybe I cut that one. I don't know what happened with that. It's funny that stream a mobile link that always comes up is that fucking thing from Aragon. Oh well, I guess that's the. I probably have more replays on StarCraft. Pull up StarCraft. Yeah, I don't think that the New World expansion is gonna do all that much. Sorry, guys. And I'll do a better job of being better at exposing topics, especially when I'm gonna cover more controversial ones for future videos. Micromanaging to that level makes me lose focus a lot. Gotcha. Yeah, it's the opposite for me. In that my brain, I have serotonin like withdrawals because of my CPTSD growing up. So I have constant draws to like get engagement. So part of why I'm a confrontational person, but also partly why I like to play confrontational games is because I beat people purely based on just forcing engagements. That's how I like to play. It's how I played chess. It's how I played pretty much all RTSs. Like, even before I was good, I would try to play that way. I just think it's like a thing for me where I always feel like because of my speed, whether because I think quickly or I can move quickly, I can overwhelm people's ability to think. And, you know, it's worked for me in martial arts. So I want to see if I can, or I felt like it's also worked for me in other aspects of my life. Strategy games. I'm fast forwarding, by the way, because I'm trying to remember if this is the standard game we played. It looks like the standard game we played. Alright, so here's my cousin. He's blocking for me because I'm not blocking. And what we're doing is, our idea was when we came back to the game, we're rusty, so we're picking the simplest combinations, which are just rushing the basic units of the game. You can see Zealots and Marines. And then we're also upgrading them, see? So you're building basic units, but the whole catch is that you're gonna upgrade them as fast as you can. And that provides them with benefits that otherwise other units wouldn't have. And so, fast forward a bit. The enemy is expanding right now. They're about to send a force out. It looks like they're massing Zerglings. So, when you don't have information, aka you don't have vision, you don't know what the enemy's gonna do. So we sent 2 Zealots and looks like 7 Marines to just go rush. And our idea is that we know that Zerg's always gonna have a quick expansion because Zerg, they have to. It's how they build units. We were like, okay, let's just go for this easy win. I thought the game was over, real talk. As soon as I saw this, Look at me, I crappily microed my guys. My cousin kind of, you know, did the best that he can. He got surrounded. But I told my cousin, I was like, man, this game's over, bro. And this shows you, again, you know, my cousin's a vet, been playing StarCraft for pretty much as long as I have, since he was single digits as well. He tells me, no, it's okay, it's okay. Straight, like real talk, he straight up said that. He's like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And maybe because he's more strategic than I am. I'm the kind of player where if I can't beat you sometimes just off of my straight ability or like the individual engagements, then sometimes I'm like, ugh, great, here comes the macro game. You know what I mean? Like, the part that I necessarily have to work on. My cousin likes to build up, you can tell. So he's a lot more confident to just build things up. So as you can see, immediately he gets his supply depot on. Crucial. Right there. He didn't. And I've built this sentry, and I think I got a good play off here. Blocking his, I blocked 3 of his gamers from busting. So these are little individual plays, and that's why I wanted to show you guys this. Why people love RTSs so much, but also why they're so fucking hard. Is that if we would have made any kind of mistake there, we would have 100% lost. And look, the game looks over, right? But for people who are watching, they know if they know, which is that I'm using charge lots now. They're upgraded zealots. And he's just massing his marines straight out of his base. So look at this engagement here again. I like this little part right here. Okay, so check this out. The enemy player, I saw this happen in live again because I'm just a good micro kind of player. He pulls his guys over here, goes for a surround. When he starts losing, I saw him send his units over, and I knew he was going to try to go for a suicide run on the back line. So you saw me immediately chase him. And that was because I was clicking my units to chase. And what he didn't know is that my units are boosted, so you can't run from me. So another crucial thing, we kept all the builders safe. And at this point, this is when I got confident again. Again, this is my avenue of approach. I'm the attacker, so I tell my cousin, let's go. We're gonna win. It's funny, like, the swing of the game, like, it goes so differently. It sounds like it's right on the screen. But yeah, unfortunately for them, we've already started to upgrade units. Which means that even if we just spam one type of unit, while the counter to spamming one type of unit is to counter them, their eco's hurting, as you can see. They're trying to mass as many units as they can now because look, they went for a rush, triple evolution chamber, and lost. Which means that they're in deep trouble. See, he goes for an early expansion. My guess is it just has a risk. Maybe not thinking we would attack, but it's my cousin and I, of course we're gonna attack. So I immediately attack, and you see me immediately turn on him. And it's because for people wondering, what Zero was saying is true. Like for players that struggle with the individual engagements, what will happen is they'll be like here on their unit, they're like, okay, they click back to their base, they click over here, they're like, okay, boom, and then suddenly their guys are fighting and they're over here building something, they're like, okay, boom, boom, build, like, oh crap, my guys are dead, and then their guys are dead. So the key is that you have to hotkey your units and be aware of them. And if you're gonna send units in for a kill like this, for me, what I was doing, macro moving my base, right? As you can see, I was doing things, but primarily focusing my energy on macro, which is why I was able to easily counter him. See, he's not able to because he had his guys on pathing. So he made a mistake there. See, you can see these mistakes literally just pile up with RTSs. It's why they can be so intimidating in games. So right here is a slight mistake my cousin made, and I was telling him, hey, run. Because whenever you see him, he stemmed finally. But he lost, I think, 2 Marines, and it's because these broodlings will kill you in the... So we didn't lose any zealots. That was good for us. I caught his banelings while they were being built. It's horrible. Killed his queen immediately because they're charge loss, which means they're very easy to kill the queen. And the thing about RTSs and chess is that good players will surrender when they already know the name's lost. These guys were mad. They didn't want to lose, so as you can see, they're still trying to win. And they feel like, we still have it, but again, the problem is that we're getting upgraded units. As you can see, my zealots each have like 5 or 6 kills because they rushed when I countered. tries to send his builders in, even build some more banelings, but look back at what's happening at base. See what I'm saying? You keep up the steady torrent, if you will, and eventually it just becomes insurmountable. So here I knew I was going to lose my guys. Not really much you can do here, but I was just going to try to suicide the queen. I actually got pretty close, but yeah, so the thing, what I'm pinging here for my cousin is I just basically say, I'm stupid and I forgot how to play, so let me spawn my units right here. Because, again, it's been forever since I played this game, so I was just like, hey, let's just... And then we start spawning our units here. Again, this is a very simple strategy. You can win RTSs with simple strategies if you're exploiting their weaknesses, if you're keeping your data, like you know what they're building, you know what they're doing, and see how I can, like, you guys never hear me talk about RTSs, but you see how I can start to wax poetic about them and like go into like deep analysis about, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do that with action games. Oh, the audio was high, my bad. I couldn't even hear it, honestly. Maybe I had it turned down for me. Yeah, and it's funny, in another game I cannon rushed a guy. And I've seen people say like, oh, in StarCraft it's so meta. It's like, it is, but it isn't. And I think people obsess so much about games that meta doesn't always apply in the same linear fashion like chess, but they think it does. So I feel like, oh, no, that it's like, guys, we're beating 2,000 plus game duo queues. You know what I'm saying? Like, with cheesing them. That's just an RTS. For people that know RTSs, you're probably laughing right now because you're like, people will always try to say, like Stormgate right now in Alpha, people are complaining because it has cheese. Like, every RTS has cheese. What are you talking about? I wanted to show you guys some Mexican candy. This one's pretty famous. Find this one in America. It's Lucas is a very famous Mexican candy company, owned by Mars Bar, by the way. Good on Mars for buying them, because these guys were big in Mexico and Texas. But it's like a ring pop, or like one of those baby bottle pops, but with Lucas. So it's spicy. It's like camarino, and tastes like chili powder. Yeah, not just that too, Mr. Zero Sins, but it's also like kind of like single player in an RTS where it's like, it's so easy to game the game after. That when people sit there and try to talk about how impressive it is to beat the game, it's like, you know where he's gonna swing. You know what I'm saying? You're predicting his swings. That's just not that fun to me. When you're predicting in a game like StarCraft or Warcraft, you have no clue what they could be doing. You have to go get information. You haven't had these in many decades. You mean the baby bottle? Baby bottle pops are kind of trash, honestly. They're like overly sweet. The sour one was good. That was my favorite one. But obviously, I'm Mexican. I grew up eating Mexican candy. The funny thing about Mexican candy for me, and just spicy food in general, because this always shocks people, is like, I literally don't remember not eating it. That's how much I ate it as a kid. I don't remember never not eating anything spicy or like spicy candy. It's life. I think my aunt is to blame. When I would visit them on the border, she would just like give me a bunch of like things that were spicy. When you're a kid, you just like eat things. You're just like, you know, when you're a kid, that's how you're like, what the? And that would be me. She'd like hand me like a Dorito with some hot sauce and lime on it. I'm like, okay. Then I eat the Dorito by itself. I'm like, kind of better with it. Next thing you know, I'm eating it every day for the rest. Speaking of which, I want some right now. You ate one of these things? You have a seizure? Oh, because of all the sugar? Yeah, baby bottle pops are insane. This is my equivalent. And I eat this shit in public too. People look at me like the 3-year-old I am. It's true. I would do viewer call-ins. I would also do viewer chats. In fact, that's not a bad idea. Even if I kept it this more kind of relaxed format, I could bring that in. I could have people call in and ask questions and talk to me about their favorite games. Because that's what I want to hear more, is I want to hear more people's experiences. Like, I know people come to me for stories and stuff, but I also want to hear y'all's stories. Yeah, it was for my actual show. And it was nice, I liked it. The problem is that a lot of people are shy to call in. Like, we would say like, hey, call in, anyone want to join in? And no one would join in. That happened for a while. Alright, so I'm a chimp. And I'm gonna show you guys the optimal way to eat. Okay? Break it off. And now you shake it. Because now you can put the whole thing in your mouth. Not recommended for beginners. Like, if you're trying this for the first time, obviously don't do that. But if you are weird like me, oh, check it out. You know, it has more on it. Goated. This is how I'm breaking my fast today, by the way. Isn't that funny as fuck? I broke my fast with it. I'm kind of craving like brisket. And since I'm in Mexico, not Texas, it's a bit hard to find brisket. So. Yeah, we had some regulars. It was fun. Honestly, as I mentioned before, the only problem came from it was like, I was putting so much time into it, too much time. And that's just being honest, that I have issues like already, but I also have to make a living. It's like, you know, I'm tired because I have issues, but I'm also tired because I gotta make a living. I remember I wanted to focus more on like, did you know Corn? That's not natural to like your own voice. Not really. What I'm saying is liking your voice and kind of being okay. Obviously, yeah, it's normal. But in reality, like our voices are very different. How they sound to us sounds different because we're hearing it. Like, now imagine hearing it through something else, including if it's a low quality mic, bad sound. Suddenly, it sounds even different. And so what content creators like me do, and artists, try to make it sound the same as possible. Try to keep it within the same kind of, you know? And what we realized early on, depending on personality and style, is that we're just better suited for certain styles. For example, early on, people would complain about me being monotone. And while I've sped up since then, I'm not that much faster. It's because I don't like the super snappy, fast style personally. It's a personal thing, but I also just don't like it. I go live every Wednesday. Sorry, guys, for people that don't understand my relationship with Mexican candy. It's like my comfort food. So last night, or yesterday, I had a hard day training. I went to sleep too late to eat this because it hurt my stomach. So I've been thinking about it like literally since last night. That is one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about before I leave. Feel free to, before I leave, I'll do a little mini AMA about Mexico. You can ask me questions. But something that makes me laugh is the sheer amount of sugar in America is absurd compared to the rest of the world. I don't think Americans even understand how bad it is. Go to other countries, everything American there is less sugar, and everything non-American is even less sugar. I never realized that until I started going to other places because I didn't start traveling until mid-20s. And it shocked me because I was like, wow, it's so insane. Spicy candy, yeah. The only candy that's not spicy that I eat, pretty much sour candy. I like candy that's like activates your, turns your tongue another color. You know what I mean? Like the real goofy kind of fun candy. Have I been to Chapultepec Castle? Yeah, most people have because it's basically located right in the park. So I haven't been inside. Actually, don't even know if you can. I haven't checked. Ooh, Rockelettas. Hey, I mean, I give you some respect. Rockelettas are one of my friend's favorites. So I've bought a lot of them. Because every time I go, I get some for myself, and then I would always get some Rockelettas. There's a bunch of different kinds too. Like one's called Polotala. Different. I think it has tamarindo inside. But I've been to the park, the castle, uh, outside of it, but not inside. And it's very pretty there. Like Mexico City's interesting contrast. It has the New York City parts, very polluted city, big city, and then it has like beautiful environment that kind of doesn't make sense. And that's, you know, it has pretty much the biggest park in North America, and then it also has an absurd amount of other parks. It's in elevation, it's in the mountains, so you have mountains all around. Very it's very New York, but it's also kind of very unique. You have to eat this at the end, by the way. You guys already knew that. Sour gummies are good, but you know I'm Mexican because I like to put spicy shit. Called chamoy. Very famous. I'll give you all a slight history about Chapultepec Castle. Basically, it's actually from the Aztecs. When the Spanish got there, they got excited because they saw this big, beautiful park. And they were told by people there that the emperors used to live there. And they would go and a spiritual journey. So they built a castle there. Or I guess built it, usually. And so it's been significant ever since. That Chapultepec as a park is where the emperors of the Aztec and Mexica, they were called, empire used to go and relax, basically, which are my ancestors. So yeah, it's kind of why it's like I'm not connected to Mexico City personally through my family, really, not really. My aunt's dad, my uncle, I never really met him, but he's from Mexico City. But historically, ancestrally, I am connected, and it's cool, man. It's cool being in the city. It's like, yeah, this is where my ancestors were. And I've mentioned it before, but if you guys have ever played Civilization, the Montezuma in Civilization is my ancestor. He's the different Montezuma than the Montezuma that everyone's familiar with. He was most famously known for introducing more technology, aqueducts, consolidating some of the empire's territories, aka winning wars. And yeah, he was actually incredibly successful. His nephew, distant nephew, is the one that people know and is more famous. And I think the thing with him is that he was always more spiritual. That was always kind of more of it creates problems in a modern world, right? Where you're introduced to other cultures and people that you can't really trust necessarily. So that's why he gets the bad rep. Is it wasn't because he was a sissy, which is what the story always told. It's more that he was more like artistic and more expressive in that way, right? Which is not that bad for a leader of Mexica. Like it probably was better off for them to get one like that every now and then, right? No, it's okay. You can always ask as many questions. I just obviously I get to them when I can, but I'm gonna head out after this question. Your spicy tolerance is cyan pepper too. Sorry to spam question. One last. Will you be coming to any cons in the Eastern U.S. in the foreseeable future? So I really want to go to PAX Unplugged. I just don't know how it's gonna work out this year. And I love going to PAX. Yeah, Civ 6 is 1, not 2. Yeah, I think their idea was that they wanted to, you know, not cover the one that got memed as much, and the one that's actually known for more military prowess and technological advancements. And I'm not just saying that because I'm related. Like he literally was. Actually, was a really great ruler, and so was his previous generations. What people don't really know about the Mexica or Aztec is that they only lasted for like 100 years. So rulers were only ruling for like 10, 20-year spans, like not very long. You're saying you're a Zoom. I don't remember what that would be in response to. But no, I'm a millennial. If that matters, I guess. Millennials feel like internet boomers. Let's just be honest, bro. Right? Like, I don't feel better than anyone. I feel like I'm a boomer. Alright, y'all. On that note, wait, there goes my Texas tendency. I don't say y'all that much here because I don't want to confuse people, but I teach people as soon as I like have conversations with them. I'm like, hey, y'all. They're usually, oh, they like it. So if y'all start hearing y'all used in Mexico, hopefully it's fucking me. Yeah, Moctezuma is his Oaxaca, Montezuma is what you would describe as the modern pronunciation. But yeah, ancient people of Mesoamerica were speaking Nahuatl, different dialects of the parent language of Nahuatl. And that's why some words still sound and feel like they are, because they are. For example, elote, isquite, way. There's a couple other ones, but needless to say, Nahuatl still exists as a language. Mayan exists as a language. There's actually millions of people in Mexico that speak these languages. They're just not like massively popular, wealthy people that are like making videos about it or whatever else. And Mexico has a very complicated history because it's essentially like people showed up and tried to unite a bunch of tribes that were never united and never wanted to be united. That's been the story of Mexico. Anyone here that's from Mexico, they know what I'm talking about. It's like the story of like a bunch of places that are, yeah, we're Mexican, but they don't really want to like be the same as each other. It's complicated. Spain is not that different actually in some ways because of their autonomous community. They just got a lot more support legally in that context because we got conquered, right? They didn't conquer, set how things worked. Yeah, my little history lesson, but anyway, speaking of history, go read some history. Go watch some videos. There's tons of great YouTubers out there. You know, it's the whole meme of like you can let you or other people become victim to what's happened in the past, or you can also look at it as like just learning and hearing really cool stories. Like for example, I really recommend you guys, if you haven't heard of, looking into the stories of Boudica from Great Britain, or looking into the story because it's a Germanic female tribal leader. Britain is interesting. There's a bunch of other great stories though. Go look up the Sea People, super fascinating. Excuse me. Look up the people of the Minos people, people of Crete, ancient people of Crete. I mean, there's just I can go on and on. The native people of the Africas and Middle East. Damn, I cannot remember the name of them. Starts with a J. Dang it, dang it, dang it. I can't remember. But you see what I'm saying? There's so many great and crazy groups of people that you'll forget all of them. So just go look into all that stuff. Or go check out my videos if you want to learn more about video games. Steppe people are super fascinating for me. In fact, I'll even argue that like I went through a phase not that long ago of steppe people. Just because in fact somebody at my gym was talking to me randomly about this, but they were like, "Oh, so you're Eastern European, like Germanic Russian, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean," because they were making an assumption. I was like, "Yeah, I am. Like, I'm Ukrainian Russian, like." And and then they were like, "Oh, that makes sense. The Viking comes from the Rus people," because people look at me and always think I'm a Viking, which is true, but for different reasons. But they're like, "Oh, so that's where the Viking comes from," and I was like, "Yeah, the Rus were Vikings, but like, to be clear, I'm a Highlander. My family came from where Vikings settled, so that's why we all look like this." Go to where my family's from for people that aren't really sure, and see the people of North Scotland. Giant, man. Huge. Massive. Not just rugby players, but just giant lads. Go to Minnesota. Check out the people in Minnesota. Some of the most famous heavyweight wrestlers come from Minnesota. You see what I'm saying? So it's like people like I get so into all that stuff because it's like origin of people does matter and does have an impact and stuff like that. Because yeah, Gallic people and Vikings were known for stature, specifically where my family's from. They're all giant. Or incredibly short, like women. Like it's like you get like the super short grandma, or everyone is giant, including the women. That's like the archetype in my family from Minnesota and Nordic countries and the Highlands. It's like either or. Anyway, on that note, I'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your week. Like I said, just go learn something. You gotta keep your brain working. It keeps you smart, it keeps you thinking, and it keeps you ready for the inevitable future of your brain's gonna want to slow down or you're gonna try to slow down. You need your brain to keep going. I learned that from my great grandpa. That's Scottish, by the way. So he always read books and played cards. So he always showed me to keep your mind. And that's a great lesson. I appreciate that, Raven Hood. You actually caught me right as I'm about to leave. So on that note, perfect timing for the music. Oh wait, bonus content. You guys can hear me work on my gach. All right, you ready? Tyne Tea, Tyne Nagus, T August, T August. Damn, I'm trying to remember the other one. Oh, T August Coffee. T August Coffee. Hello. Hello. That is God, by the way. Hello. Oh shit. Alright, that's all you guys get. I know how to say like 4 fucking words.